Hello YouTube. Some of you may remember that the meteorite that arrived in the sky over Russia in 2013. I'm sure you do. It left several questions, and as far as I know, this is not a subject that certain governments around the world want you to explore. It's an inconvenient event, but some people have explored it. I collected information about it, some from the research of the former Russian Colonel Pravdivtsev, a very insightful person, and some from other sources. So, if you recall, on Friday, February 15, in the year 2013, at 9:20 a.m. local time, a sparkling ball streaked the sky over the southern Urals, descending gently, leaving behind a trail similar to that of an airplane, but somehow strange. And suddenly, a blinding flash that illuminated everything around with an incredibly white light for 5 seconds, much brighter than the sun. A minute later, the sky was split by the roar of a powerful explosion. After the first one, a few more booms, but weaker. The shock wave complemented the apocalyptic picture. The alarm system on the cars howled, glass shattered in thousands of windows, and window frames flew out. Plaster fell from the ceilings. Long-term dust was blown out of the ventilation into the premises. Dozens of cars were skidded and pushed into ditches on the roads. Thousands of buildings were damaged. The wall of one of the buildings fell off at the zinc plant. The damage was more than 1 billion Russian rubles. That's before the inflation. According to the number of victims of the meteoroid, and there were more than 1,600 people. Look, this had no analogs, no comparables in the world's documented history. Let's look at the hypothesis that came up after this event. The unexpected celestial visitor agitated the Russians. Hypotheses were pouring out of the buckets, using colloquial terms of the Russian language. Some assured, for example, that the fireball was the work of human hands. Some people said that the fallen meteorite is not a meteorite at all, but a combat missile of the Russian Ministry of Defense. They differed only in who the missile belonged to exactly in the Russian armed forces. Some believed that it was an unsuccessful launch and self-destruction of Russian rocket, and offered to urgently determine its tail number. Others claimed that it was an American Trident II rocket, in which, in order to confuse the Russians, instead of the warhead, the adversaries stuffed fragments of real meteorites, of which thousands are found around the world. And someone from the high podium, so to say, hotly and categorically declared that it was a test of a new American space weapon. And the Urals was chosen as a target because it is stuffed with military objects and facilities. Exotic hypotheses were added to the conspiracy theories. There is a sign of God and mini Armageddon, and that the fall of the fragments of the old reality took place, and testing the strength of the psychic shield of humanity. Naturally, there was also an alien hypothesis. Alien visitation. Some people assured that it was an unofficial space message from the friendly planet Nibiru. Others, on the contrary, believed that it was a special container with viruses designated to destroy humanity. And someone, as usual, assumed that it was a shipwreck of an alien spacecraft. The Russian military immediately dismissed the weapons hypothesis. Not a single plane, not a single rocket or missile today is even able to develop half the speed of the Chelyabinsk meteorite. I will call it Chelyabinsk meteorite. It has another name. We'll get to it. In addition, it is absolutely unclear where such a hypothetical weapon could have started from and what purpose to pursue. and there are no such weapons today, neither space-based nor other-based. The abundance of what some people can call ridiculous hypotheses once again demonstrated the ignorance and illiteracy reigning today in the country that used to be known as the most reading country in the world. Viktor Gorokhovsky, the head of the meteorite expedition of the Ural Federal University, a member of the Russian Academy of Science Committee on Meteorites, had to comment bitterly: the spread of hypotheses in social networks is due to the fact that these people do not study astronomy. And yet, let's look at the evidence. The picture became clear after analyzing data from several independent sources. At first glance, it looks like quite classic. A meteoroid, it will be called a meteorite only after its fragments are found on Earth's surface, about 17 meters in diameter and weighing from 7 to 10,000 tons, burst into the atmosphere of our planet at the speed of about 20 kilometers a second. That's like 72,000 kilometers an hour, somewhere in the Baikal region. Of all the places, it had to be Baikal. In any case, approximately there began a smoky trail, which was later found on the images of weather satellites. The meteor body entered the Earth's atmosphere at a very sharp angle at the altitude of about 90 kilometers. It flew along a rather gentle, almost sliding trajectory from the southeast to the northwest at an azimuth of about 290 degrees. Breaking and heating up from the friction in the atmosphere, the celestial body the size of a 6-story house or building and weighing as much as the Eiffel Tower quickly turned into a bright fireball, leaving behind a tail of combustion products. The duration of the flight from the moment of its entry into the atmosphere to the moment of explosion is a little more than half a minute. The meteor's body flight over the Chelyabinsk region was accompanied by several explosions of varying power and a blinding flash, lasting about 5 seconds. The first most powerful explosion occurred at an altitude of about 30 kilometers, after which the meteoroid, which had fallen apart, moved to an even more gentle trajectory and began to quickly lose velocity. At the altitude of 15 kilometers, it was already moving at 4.3 kilometers a second. The approximate temperature of the explosion is more than 2.5 thousand degrees. The power is up to 500 kilotons in TNT equivalent. That is 10 times more powerful than the bomb dropped on Hiroshima. The shock wave from the explosion, which caused the main destruction, reached the surface of the Earth only after a couple of minutes. We should add that after the meteorite explosion, the brightness of the sunlight over Chelyabinsk increased so much that the residents began to feel an unusual heat emanating from the February sun, and the Mias River even began to evaporate. Well, the astrophysicists, they explained, as a result of the explosion, an ozone hole was formed over the region. According to experts, no more than 10% of the initial mass of the meteorite body, that is about 1,000 tons of matter, reached the Earth. The fragments that did not evaporate from the explosion in the form of dust dispersed in a strip about 20 kilometers wide and up to 150 kilometers long. Soon, 3 wreckage sites were discovered in the Chelyabinsk region, 2 in the Chebarkursky and 1 in Zlatoust district. The moment of falling fragments was directly observed by fishermen near the lake Chebarkul. According to them, one of the 7 fragments fell directly into the lake, throwing up a 4-meter column of water and ice. In the following days, members of the meteorite expedition found dozens of meteorite fragments in the area of Lake Chebarkul and in other places. Their chemical analysis refuted all exotic hypotheses. The celestial visitor turned out to be a typical stone meteorite, one of those that are called chondrites. Of the 10 meteorites that have fallen to Earth, 9 are chondrites. Chelyabinsk fragments consist of minerals of different colors: black, white, gray, pierced with shiny veins of metal. They contain olivine, sulfides, iron, nickel, metallic iron, no new elements. The melting crust is also present on the fragments. There was no excess of the radiation background in that region. In general, nothing special, except that some fragments differ from their siblings in composition. Well, by this, according to the researchers, speaks only about the heterogeneous metal composition of the celestial body itself. The latter circumstance allowed scientists to put forward a hypothesis that it was not exactly a meteorite that exploded over the Urals, but an icy comet with meteorite inclusions, stone and other refractory inclusions that, over millions of years of wandering around the solar system, accumulated in an ice block from collisions with space debris. This hypothesis is also supported by the fact that the Russian orbiting satellite Meteor, during the passage of a meteorite through its orbit, recorded signs that are characteristic of a comet, in particular, an increase in the amount of water. Let's add that the Chebarkul bolide, or the Chelyabinsk meteorite, well, Chebarkul is the right name, was not a loner, so there were others. In the morning of the same day, a meteor shower was recorded in 5 regions of Russia: Tyumen, Sverdlovsk, Chelyabinsk, Kurgan regions, and Bashkiria. But it all started even earlier, 4 days before the Chelyabinsk explosion. On February 11, a large bolide flew over the territory of Bashkiria. And on February 14, that is, on the eve of the end of the world, so to say, over Chelyabinsk, surveillance cameras in Japan recorded a night invasion of the atmosphere and bright flashes of several objects, very similar to the Russian one. But there were no consequences in Japan. Well, the same cannot be said about Cuba. The fact is that the falling fireball, which seemed lighter than the sun, was observed over the island 2 hours before the Ural meteorite. The country's state television reported that the meteorite fell in the central region of Cuba, near the town of Rodas. There were no casualties, but several buildings were damaged. Let's add one more event to this list. A few hours after the Chelyabinsk explosion, a strange glow of the sky and fiery flashes were observed in the western United States, over the San Francisco Bay. Scientists believe that these celestial visitors, like the Chelyabinsk one, belong to a group of asteroids called Apollos. They are located between the orbits of Venus and Jupiter, regularly across the Earth's orbit, and therefore are potentially dangerous for our planet. Everything is clear and there are no special surprises to be expected, right? Well, not everything is so simple. Let's look at some enigmas or mysteries connected to the Chelyabinsk celestial body. Well, there are plenty of them, and they're quite puzzling questions, and they are caused, oddly enough, by scientific and technological progress. A huge number of eyewitnesses with digital cameras, video cameras, mobile phones, surveillance cameras at various institutions recorded a lot of strange and even implausible things. The most natural question arises first. Why did the meteorite explode? It would seem that the answer is obvious, and the official media, they adhere to it. After entering the atmosphere, the body heated up and exploded. However, according to experts, none of the known celestial bodies can explode by itself with the power of dozens of atomic bombs. There are no thermal explosions in either iron or stone meteorites, not to mention ice or snow comets, especially at this altitude, even before entering the dense layers of the atmosphere. In order for such an explosion to occur, the celestial body had to consist entirely of super efficient explosives. But science does not even hypothetically imagine meteorites with properties of nuclear warhead. And also that blinding flash brighter than the sun, neither thermal nor chemical explosion can give such brightness. It seems that some answers to these questions should be found in several videos that appeared on the internet shortly after the fall of the Chelyabinsk meteorite, and taken from different points. One video shows the flight of a descending meteoroid with a small tail even before the explosion. With a detailed frame-by-frame examination, it is clearly visible how a certain luminous object of an oblong shape with a speed 3 times the speed of the meteoroid catches up with it from behind, literally stitches through, and continues its flight horizontally with the original speed and the same course. There are no grounds to consider the recording to be a fake. No Photoshop, no signs of installation or computer graphics were found. But there are signs of purposeful actions. First of all, we see a classic example of the interception attack from the rear hemisphere. The only difference is that the destruction and explosion of the meteoroid occurred not due to the explosion of the interceptor itself, as is customary in air defense, but by the most environmentally friendly method, due to the huge kinetic energy of the attacking object. The latter, having shattered the meteorite into pieces and received no visible damage, continued its movement at the same speed and along the same trajectory. Amazingly, after a short time, after a few frames, the mysterious interceptor began to rise up a little and vanished, literally disappearing into thin air. By the way, it also appeared out of nothing before the attack, out of nowhere. Judging by the ease with which the interceptor pierced and crushed the meteoroid, the latter did not have a very high density. It looked like a block of ice with various stone inclusions, which is confirmed by the fragments found on the ground. Remember what the scientist told you, right? The elongated appearance of the meteoroid fragments flying away from the explosion is most likely due to the peculiarities of the video itself. Fast-moving objects in the video often look oblong. However, there are also some surprises here. One fragment behaved rather strangely. At first it flew with a decrease and then suddenly went up, as if catching up with the interceptor. The fragments do not fly after the explosion in this fashion. Attempts to write off some maneuvers due to the dirty windshield in front of the car camera or on the defects of the video camera, well, such attempts look, to put it mildly, unprofessional. Dirt spots or defects on the glass relative to each other do not move and look completely different. It was suggested that the record shows the disintegration of the meteoroid after the first main explosion, but that's not so. Firstly, it was the first explosion as a result of the attack that was captured on video. And secondly, during the explosion, the fragments should fly away from the center of the explosion and not strive for it, as we see on that video. It is impossible to attribute the catching up and ramming object to the fragment that previously broke off from the same meteorite, even theoretically. A fragment that broke off earlier can only lag behind the main object, but in no way exceed it in speed. About the same thing is said by eyewitnesses. Here's one of the observations. I'm from Mias. I saw everything myself from the Ilmeni ridge. In profile, after the explosion, I saw well how the cylinder, leaving behind a weak inverse trace on the glide path with a slight decrease, and not at all ballistically, it flew to Kazakhstan. What it was, it seems we will never know. Who attacked the meteoroid? Where did this Terminator come from? What was he like? Where did he or it disappear to? There is no answer to these questions yet. It can only be noted that the interception method, in contrast to the chase or dog curve method, speaks of an accurate calculation of the place and time of the encounter. That is a high level of scientific and technical support for the attack. In the US, media wrote about the secret weapon of the Russians. In the Chelyabinsk region, someone spread the rumor that the meteorite was shot down by the air defense or missile defense missile. But the Russian military honestly admitted that they were not only incapable of shooting it down, but even detect such an object in a timely manner. They couldn't do it because of the insignificant size and high speed. There are no missiles in the world today with speeds of 100 times faster than the speed of sound. As one specialist of the Russian Aerospace Defense Forces commented on this situation, shooting down an object moving at a celestial speed with a missile is simply an unrealistic task today. Attacking a space object from behind with even the most modern missile covering 20 kilometers in a second is like catching up with an express train on a bicycle. By the way, similar events occurred in Japan in January of 2002. A video posted on the internet showed a UFO flying past a Japanese meteorite a few moments before the explosion. After the explosion, the UFO dramatically increases its speed and disappears into the sky. Whether the UFO was the cause of the explosion, we probably will never know. Let's look at a few more riddles that the Chelyabinsk meteorite left behind. One of them is the smoke trail, which was recorded by video cameras at the time of the explosion. The most interesting thing is that when filming, the camera was directed to the east, to where the meteorite was flying from. The back illumination of the explosive cloud and the dawn sky are clearly visible, and this means that the smoky streak is not a trace of a meteorite. Then whose trail is it? The thought was expressed, maybe the trail leads not to the meteorite but from it, and it was not a meteorite that left it, but the same object flying away from the explosion site that rammed and broke into pieces the dangerous celestial guest. By the way, the video footage showed how fragments fly out of the epicenter of the explosion, leaving a white contrail. Was it evaporated ice? Well, there are questions that have no hypothesis beside them. Let's look at them. These are the sharply ending forked inversion trail of the meteorite and unexplained bright flashes that were observed on this trail for some time after the flight, and UFO activity in the Ural region on the eve of the Chelyabinsk event as reported by eyewitnesses, and a huge number of Russian paratroopers urgently transferred to Chelyabinsk with armored vehicles on the same day by the order of the Minister of Defense of the Russian Federation. Several hundred soldiers and officers, paratroopers of the 217th Parachute Regiment from Ivanov, were alerted early in the morning and made a throw. Well, they came to the area, I don't want to use Russian slang, with 20 Il-76 craft to the Shagol airfield and from it to Chebarkul training ground. The official hypothesis is it was a sudden inspection of combat readiness. It should be noted that such large-scale inspections have not been carried out for more than 20 years prior to that. As reported, about 7,000 people took part in the exercises. Military personnel, hundreds of pieces of military equipment, and about 40 aircraft for various purposes. And although, according to the military, these unscheduled exercises are not connected in any way with the visit of the celestial guest or visitor, the narrative and duration of the exercises are still kept secret by the Russian military. Also, questions about hundreds of strange snow mounds with a height of 10 to 20 centimeters, which suddenly appeared on the ice of Lake Chebarkul about a month after the Chelyabinsk events. The reason for their appearance is not yet clear, but it is assumed that they are somehow connected with the fallout of micrometeorites, with the fragments of the February celestial guests. As you can see, many questions. If the meteorite had not been blown up at a more or less safe altitude, but had reached the surface of the Earth in one piece, the consequences could have been catastrophic, especially considering that Chelyabinsk is saturated with military and nuclear facilities. Please understand the implications. We will not hypothesize about who shot down the meteorite and saved us from the colossal disaster. The time will come and perhaps we will learn more. Let's believe it. Let's look at some more data and reports about this case. So thanks to numerous street surveillance cameras and car video recorders, the Chelyabinsk meteorite has acquired the status of the most dangerous body in the documented history of human civilization, I guess coming from the space. Despite the fact that it is 3 times smaller in size than the famous Tunguska meteorite, which that's what they call it, and I call it object, because there was no meteorite anyway. And Chelyabinsk 1 occupies only the 4th position in the ranking of the largest celestial bodies that have ever reached the surface of planet Earth. This space visitor was fraught with the greatest threat to mankind. Unlike its predecessors, the Chelyabinsk meteorite fell directly in the residential area of the population. When it came into the contact with Earth, 3 great explosions occurred with a total capacity of 500 kilotons, again, which is comparable to 20 Hiroshima size powerful bombs. From the resulting blast wave in a number of cities of the Chelyabinsk region, windows in houses were broken and even some structures were damaged. The meteorite shower that generously poured in at Kul, Yamazhelinsk, Kopeysk, Korkino, Chebarkul, Chelyabinsk, and Yuzhno-Uralsk also contributed to the damage, where more than 1,000 people were injured and had to seek help from the medical institutions. You just think about this. You know my videos about the strange Ural Mountains. Why did it have to happen over the Ural Mountains? The place of landing of the meteorite Chelyabinsk was located near the regional center of Lake Chebarkul, which actually gave it its original name. You know, the Chebarkul meteorite. The celestial body was extracted from the bottom of the reservoir, which allowed scientists to unravel a number of secrets of the meteorite. However, in addition to researchers, crowds of curious locals immediately rushed to the area of the fall and stole about 90% of the meteorite fragments for souvenirs and subsequent sales. According to the doctor of physical mathematical sciences Alexander Dudorov, thanks to the efforts of 57 researchers who worked on the study of the Chelyabinsk meteorite, important conclusions were made about its nature, energy, and circumstances of flight and passage through the atmosphere, the fall and the explosion. As a result of the research, the scientific community concluded that the initial weight of this meteorite was 11 to 13 tons, and the size was about 20 meters in diameter, which is comparable in height to a 6-story building. However, in the process of passing through the atmosphere at the speed of about 20 kilometers per second, the meteorite significantly lost weight. Okay, moving along a gentle trajectory from 15 to 17 degrees to the plane of the Earth, it gradually collapsed, sprinkling the area with small meteorite fragments, and eventually reduced in length to 12 meters and reached the weight of 654 kilograms. Meanwhile, according to Dudorov, the consequences of the fall of the celestial body could be much more tragic if the slope of the trajectory of its fall was closer to the vertical one. Scientists involved in the study of meteoritic matter, including Viktor Grachovsky, member of the Committee of the Meteorites of the Russian Academy of Sciences, found that the Chelyabinsk celestial body is a sample of ordinary chondrites with very slow strength and a small metal content. That is why, when passing through the atmosphere, it broke up into smaller fragments, forming an expanded area of contact of meteoritic matter with the environment, and as a result of the falling stream heated up, which caused a very rapid release of a large amount of energy, interpreted from the Earth as a bright flash from which the heat emanated. In fact, this meteorite is a remnant of the very building material from which the planets of the solar system were formed at one time. Having slightly solved the essence of the Chelyabinsk meteorite, scientists nevertheless have not yet been able to answer a number of questions related to its nature and fall. Maybe they should talk to those Russian paratroopers that were sent to the area. Anyway, the Russian physicist Sergei Zamozdra believes that it's still necessary to understand the chemical composition of this celestial body and determine whether it was a rock formation or consisted mostly of gases. He explains the reasonableness of this question by the fact that significantly fewer fragments of the meteorite were found on Earth, which weighed about 10 tons when entering the atmosphere. Indirect confirmation that the composition of the meteorite Chelyabinsk could be gas, according to the results of the analysis of water samples taken from Lake Chebarkul. According to the conclusions of ecologists, after the fall of the celestial body into the water area of the reservoir, overestimated indicators of water saturation with nitrogen were recorded. Another unanswered question is where the fragments of the meteorite that were flying at a lower speed landed, as the glow no longer emanated. Another problem is how to learn how to calculate the consequences of the destruction of the inhomogeneous meteorite, since the safety of life of people living in the zone of a hypothetical fall of a celestial body and its fragments directly depend on this. According to Viktor Grachovsky, the fall of the Chelyabinsk meteorite once again reminded people that the planet is under threat from outer space and that not a single corner of it is immune from the sudden fall of an even larger celestial body. In this regard, it is reasonable to ask how to make the world community focus on the need to create a system for detecting and protecting against asteroids and comets and allocate funds for it. Optimism in this regard was inspired by the fact that in October of 2008 in the United States, a telescope tuned to detect near-Earth asteroids recorded a small space object approaching the Earth, and scientists, on the basis of the data obtained, managed to predict the orbit, place, and time of its landing on the day before its fall. Naturally, there is a perplexity. Why then the Chelyabinsk meteorite was not detected by observation devices, and the population was not warned about its potential danger? It turned out that this space object was coming from the direction of the sun, and even if there is a specialized system for observing near-Earth space, it would not have been detected. Due to the arrival of the Chelyabinsk meteorite, experts had to revise their estimates of the frequency of the fall of such celestial bodies. Previously, it was assumed that they land about once every 100 years, but in practice it turned out that similar events happen about 5 times in a century. So the question is, who intercepted the strange celestial visitor? Did the Russian Ministry of Defense know about this? And what the Russians know, the Americans at the very top and the Chinese know too. Who investigates this today? I mean, so many years have passed by. For sure there is investigation. And I'm not talking about average scientists. Okay? To me, it shows that our governments are not in full control over the planet defenses, and something else or someone else operates on our planet to shoot down very dangerous celestial visitors. I've discussed this in relation to the Tunguska event, and I'm sure we can discuss it more. Let me also add this. My colleagues from the Russian paranormal research organization Kosmopoisk have collected tremendous amount of information about UFOs visiting Russia and other countries, the Chelyabinsk area as well. I want to mention the mysterious black triangular UFOs and cases reported by the Chelyabinsk Kosmopoisk. Here's the 2004 case. Because of this, my colleagues learned about the observation of the 3-star UFO near the city of Kishtim. This is a small town in the Chelyabinsk region. It's known for its strange little alien-like creature, and I made a video about it, and you should look it up. But we're not going to talk about any connections right now. Okay? An eyewitness named Evgeny, that's we'll call him, although we know he introduced himself in full. Anyway, he shared the following information. There was an observation on the night from June 1 to June 2, 2004. The clock showed it was about 1 o'clock in the morning. An amazing picture appeared before the eyes of Evgeny and his wife. They were watching the object together. 3 bright stars were flying across the sky, and they were located in the form of a triangle, 3-star. According to Evgeny, the UFO carried out its movement in complete silence. About the size of the object, Evgeny noted the following. The dimensions of the side were about twice the apparent diameter of the moon. The base of the triangle is much shorter. The object was moving in the southwest side of the sky. The flight path can be represented as the direction of the object from the ground to the zenith. The base of this object was parallel to the ground. Visually, Evgeny was able to determine that the object was moving from the direction of the cities. Miyaz, Zlatout, Karabash, all these cities are practically located on the same straight line towards Kishtim. Evgeny also noted that when observing the object, it seemed that it was taking off from somewhere. Moreover, the takeoff point should be located not very far from Kishtim itself, somewhere near the town of Karabash. To the question asked by the questioner about the feelings experienced by him as the eyewitness, Evgeny answered, "When observing, I did not experience any sensations associated with UFOs." By the way, as it turned out after the special UFO investigation in Russia, the triangles do not fly everywhere, but only in areas with the mandatory presence of certain minerals, copper ores, for example, although no one rejects the possibility of a simple coincidence, but it's too strange of a coincidence. Look, I have more tremendously interesting cases of triangle UFOs over the Urals in general and Chelyabinsk in particular, but it will require another video. Personally, I think that Chelyabinsk, or under the city of Chelyabinsk, or in that area, there may be something, not only natural resources and minerals, that attracts celestial guests. But again, we're speaking about the Ural Mountains. And to understand the vastness of the paranormal question of that area, you should look at my videos. You will find them. I've been putting quite a lot, and I hope to make more. Look, I hope my questions about the 2013 meteorite will raise your curiosity. And I want to tell you also about a very unusual South African meteorite, so to say, and a very ancient plant of Namibia, and what connection there is between them. Stay tuned, please, because you know from my other videos, I like to talk about meteorites And if you like my research, please support me. You will find the links in the description to this video. Please like my channel, it helps. And please tell others. I'm hoping to make a breakthrough and get as many viewers as I can, because I like to talk about subjects that maybe others do not. And I gotta tell you, ours is a very interesting planet, and we don't know that much about it or what surrounds it. Thank you.